allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, our mega student, or our student representative, is representing us in DECA, where?
Orlando, Florida.
Orlando. So we have some board members that volunteered to do certain jobs. One of them is to read the mega statement.
All students will graduate prepared with the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and behaviors necessary to make a positive impact in the world.
Thank you, Ms. Jasper. And now Mr. Olson has volunteered to read the student representative report, which he did not write, by the way, so don't let him take credit. Our student wrote it.
These are Addison's words. Good evening, members of the board. Please excuse my absence. I have the honor of competing at the DECA Internationals, which is in Orlando. I am pleased to present a summary of activities across our school district for the month of April. A more detailed written report will be available for the Chippewa stakeholders in the public minutes and in the board's monthly newsletter, Board Considerations. At the high school, music department hosted spring concerts at the end of March. We had 6 groups compete at the state, including gymnastics, FBLA, Skills USA, HOSA, HOSA, visual arts, and forensics. On the 9th, the juniors took the ACT. Prom was this past Saturday, and it was hosted at the Lilydale for the second year. Tickets were sold out once again for the event. On the 24th, the Haie Center hosted the Chippewa Falls Area Unified School District K-12 Art Show. Parent-teacher conferences will be held on Wednesday of this week. At the middle school, they kicked up their spring Olympics. They finished Wisconsin Forward testing. Their jazz band plays at the Jazz Fest. For Skills 3 schools, many students participated in the hands-on activities and toured the local businesses. At Homestead, students are finishing up state testing. They held their staff and student talent show on the 17th. The 4th graders are headed to Carson Park to learn about the logging history. At Hillcrest, 3 through 5 grade students finished up forward testing. Grade K through 12 finished their Ames web testing, and they will be celebrating the competition of all 391 random acts of kindness. How did they come up with 391?
I don't know, but it was only K2.
K2 for the Ames web testing?
Yeah.
Well, this is Addison.
No, you 2 right there.
I know that, but we blame Addison.
Okay.
PTO held a bingo and raffle night. 164 students received free dental services through Bright Smiles, and kindergarten has their music performance later this week. In conclusion, our district is sugared up a long weekend and ready to finish the year strong. Thank you for your time and attention. I would be happy to answer any further questions if I were here.
Board members have any questions for Mr. Olson?
I would like to read them with a little more inflection.
I agree.
Enunciate.
I agree. That's seconded.
Well, inflection.
So I could have swore you would have used the phrase sugared up. That was her?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rubbed off on her.
All right, before we go on to public comment, Angela, was there any reason we were taking anything out of order? Same order? Okay. All right, 4.01, welcome and guidelines for public comment. Ms. Dunor, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
We do not.
All right, I'll make that nice and quick. Next is Showcase a School. 5.01 is the Cardinal Community Learning Center, and Ann Zenner is going to be presenting on that.
Thank you. My name is Ann Zenner, and I'm the director of the Cardinal Community Learning Center. So tonight I'm just going to kind of overview some different programming updates. So the Cardinal Community Learning Center, also known as the CCLC, supports a variety of district needs. We oversee community and district events and classes, our Student Connections Support Program, our Voyagers After School Program, and community education. So I'm going to kick us off by starting to talk about community education. So Connor or someone hand those out. I've got lots of handouts for you guys tonight. So while Connor's passing that around, community education, Jenny Schaefer is our community education coordinator. She's been with the district for 7 years. She does a nice job with our community ed programming. She produces these brochures. They go out twice a year, once in the fall to our community members, and then once in the winter for our winter and spring programming. She uses an InDesign software program to produce these brochures. It's the same computer software program that's used to produce the Cardinal Line District newsletter. So this year to date, we've had 2,612 registrations. Actually, that number is higher now. We continue to have registrations come in as we continue to offer classes and events. We've offered 92 classes this year, 4 bus trips, and 2 events. We offered the Age Your Way event this past October. We'll be offering our 3rd annual Age Your Way event next October, October 17th. And then we have our upcoming Community Bike Rodeo event, which will be taking place at Stilson Elementary School on May 16th. We've got a flyer that Olivia is passing around right now. I would hope that all of you guys come out and check it out and encourage people to attend. We can take up to 150 student registrations. I think, Jeff, you're planning on having a PR booth at the event. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Ms. Roy, for joining me.
Perfect. So again, that's May 16th. So when I asked the CCL team if they could narrow it down to 3 things that makes community education amazing, the team decided to come up with these 3 things. We empower lifelong learning, we strengthen the bond between schools and the community, and we support mental, physical, and emotional well-being. So the CCLC tries to support the district in a variety of ways. A few of those ways this year, we offered a Strengthening Families program. We had 11 families complete the program. We offered a Kids Who Code elementary coding class at Hillcrest Elementary School. We've partnered with 3 PTOs this year to provide some family fun nights. In November, we partnered with the Jim Falls PTO, and we were able to provide dinner and then a fun craft activity where families were able to make a snow globe craft. In February, we partnered with the Southview PTO, and we offered a family fun event. Again, we provided a free dinner and then a free love bug craft. There's a photo in the slide there. And then we're offering one at Stilson on May 6th. Families are going to, again, be provided with a free dinner and then a craft activity where they're going to be making a fun caterpillar sock craft. This year is the Homeless Liaison. We've had 35 referrals for students experiencing homelessness in our school district. We are currently supporting 27 of those students. In supporting Chippewa Falls High School this year, I'm a member of CHIP, the Chippewa Health Improvement Group. We partnered and we were able to bring in an AODA presenter during Red Ribbon Week, and we also were able to provide funding to support a teacher to attend a bar teacher training program. So with that said, Voyagers and Student Connections. I've got some more handouts for you. Perfect. So our Voyagers After School program takes place on Tuesdays and Thursdays after school at the middle school from 4 to 5:30 p.m. This year, we've had 372 total registrations so far, with registrations still trickling in, and we've offered 44 different classes. We try to offer a variety of classes for our students to take after school. This year, we were able to put on a play, Beauty and the Beast. Next fall, we'll be putting on the Jungle Book play. We've offered different classes like robotics, homework help, different sports classes like a golf academy class. Cooking and baking classes are very popular with our students. Right now we have a CPR and first aid class going on at the middle school and a variety of arts and crafts classes as well. Again, I deferred to the CCLC team and I said if we could narrow it down to 3 things that make us amazing with the Voyagers program, what would it be? And the team said that we foster a culture of inclusion and acceptance where everyone is welcome and feels valued. We encourage positive peer relationships and social emotional development through group activities and team building, and we partner with local organizations and community leaders to bring in special programming to expand opportunity for our students. Okay. Next,
And sorry to interrupt.
No, you're
I want to foreshadow something from the board to the last topic that I was talking about. In May or June, you're going to be getting a report from both the middle school and the high school about things that wrap around what Ann was just talking about, and you're going to be able to have some fantastic information from both of those schools regarding the work that's been taking place not only in the after-school programming, but also at our high school and middle school, that work is paying dividends throughout the entire district. So thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. Go ahead and pass these out. So Olivia Danielson is going to be passing out right now some student and teacher testimonials from both Community Ed, Student Connections, and our Voyager programming. So they are all different, so if you could just kind of read one and then pass it around, I would appreciate that. So Student Connection support groups are offered right now at the middle school during the day. This year, we've had 67 student enrollments with enrollment still coming in. I'm currently offering a relax class at the end of the day during TA where students are able to learn different calming and mindfulness techniques. This year, we were able to offer 8 different classes, and those classes are listed up there. And in the brochure, that gray brochure, list all of our different class offerings. So next, Olivia Danielson did a fantastic job putting together this video.
I really like that there's different people with different skills. Like, mostly in Super Smash Bros, there's different characters making different ways to play. It's really cool, yeah.
What class are you guys taking?
Fiber arts.
We get to make rugs, and it's fun. At first, it's like hard to do.
The conversations.
Conversations?
Just doing it in general.
Nice. Do you love community ed?
Absolutely, right?
What's your favorite part?
Oh, there's so many. I like all the interaction with all the people that are in the class. Yes.
Nice.
And learning something new all the time.
I love to do the cooking classes and the craft classes.
The bus trips.
We're doing the
Caribou and
Mississippi. Yeah.
Excellent. All right.
And it's always such a great time going on the trips, just meeting people.
Yeah.
And Jenny does a great job playing.
I will throw in that I like the diversity of class and people, ages, young and old are here.
Yeah.
And we're all blending together and we've never met.
Yeah, I just love the diversity of the classes. We're newer to the community, and it's been a really good experience. We've made a lot of new foods that I would have never tried.
All right, so next up, I have 3 Voyager students that are here to talk about, in person, their experiences with the Voyagers program. So, Connor, I'm gonna kick it off to you if you wanna go ahead and talk to the board.
Thank you. My name's Connor and I'm a 6th grader. Here's a few things I really like about Voyagers. I signed up for the play and I got the role of Gaston, and I was really nervous because I'd never done a play before, but I found out I really liked it. I went out of my comfort zone and faced my fear of being on stage. I also really like that I got to play D&D, and I don't really know where to do that. And they got me the chance to play with friends. And it's not really a game of imagination. It's more like a time to connect with friends and make them. I also really like that they did esports, like Super Smash Bros. I got to meet new people and also play with my friends for a little longer. Finally, my mom signed me up for a cooking class for breakfast mostly. And I made pizza pancakes, breakfast muffins, and my favorite was chicken pot pie. I never would have tried it and make it with my mom, like most of the time, at home if I haven't been with Voyagers. Thank you for having these after-school classes, and it's easier to adjust to school and to learn new things and meet some pretty cool people. Thank you.
Good questions. Are you able to help out a lot at the home now with cooking?
Yeah.
Awesome. Your mom really appreciates that. And once you get to high school, are you going to be ready for the esports team?
Yes.
Because we've been champions in the past, so you need to be pretty good.
Thank you.
All right, and Graceland, would you like to go next?
Hi, my name is Graceland Cole, and I'm a 6th grader at Chippewa Falls Middle School. I'm so excited to share some of the cool experience in the after-school program this year. Esports. Esports was awesome. I learned how to work as a team, think fast, and communicate clearly. We had to focus and make smart decisions during the games. Cooking class taught me how to follow directions, use tools safely, and get creative with recipes. It was fun making foods and sharing it with others. Rug making. Rug making was new to me. It took patience and focus, but it felt great to finish something I made myself. I learned how to pay attention to details and stick to a project. STEM careers helped me learn about future jobs in science, tech, engineering, and math. It showed me problem solving and asking questions can lead to exciting careers. Pizza making. I was born in Italy while my family was stationed there with the Air Force. Making pizza, even non-traditional pizzas from scratch, reminded me of where I was born, and it was delicious. Skills I gained: teamwork, communication, creativity, patience, confidence, problem solving, and trying new things. Thank you for supporting after-school programs like this. They've made a big difference in my life, and I know they help a lot of other students too.
Same for you on those first two questions. You helping out at the house now that you had the cooking classes? Are you ready to try out for the esports team when you get to high school? My next question has to do, have you ever heard of the phrase human flourishing? You ever heard of it? All right, one of my worries right now, based on what I know about it, is that I just read a report that teens are not feeling necessarily good about the future. But based on what I just heard you read, you're telling me that you're feeling pretty good about things. Do you feel like the after-school program and things you're learning at the middle school are getting you well prepared? Mm-hmm. That is fantastic to hear. Are you feeling good about your future? Yes. Beautiful. Thank you.
And then our final guest speaker, Georgia.
I have one more. Are you the mom?
I am.
Who's stationed over there?
Yeah.
Thank your family for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Georgia Carnes. I am a Chippewa Falls Middle School student who has attended multiple Voyagers classes. I'm going to share some advantages of the Chippewa Falls Voyagers program. Students who attend the Voyagers program are more likely to explore their interests. As a student who has attended Voyagers, I've met new people and learned new stuff like Graceland. I've met her, and she's become one of my new friends. Voyagers is an amazing experience, overall, and brings many different opportunities to explore. When you look at class opportunities, you always stop and think about trying something new. I've taken classes I haven't even been interested in, and it turns out I really did enjoy them. Taking into consideration these amazing opportunities I've had, I'm so glad I've had them. Surely other people think so too. Thank you for your time.
Any questions for you? Are you feeling like you're getting everything you need from the school district to prepare for your future? So you striping, are you an 8th grader?
Mm-hmm.
So are you ready for 9th grade?
Yes.
High school. Awesome. Well, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So one of the favorite parts of my job is that I get to work with a lot of great volunteers from our community that help support our classes and events. And so I wanted to give a shout out to all of the volunteers on the screen here. They've either offered to support our events or taught a class for us. And so I just wanted to give all of the folks there some recognition for volunteering their time, not only for our students, but staff, district, and for our community. And finally, before I forget, I want to give a shout out to Holly Weiland for helping to put this presentation together. She's the admin assistant for the CCLC. And I also want to thank all of you for supporting our programming, not only for our students, our staff, but also for the community. And with that said, do you have any questions for me?
And I know that in the past I've seen where there was doing a welding class or a woodworking class or business class. Is that, I see we aren't doing that anymore. Is that just because of lack of resources or what's causing that?
It depends upon instructors. So the instructor that we had for the welding class isn't with the district anymore. So just trying to secure another one. But I know Jenny's on it. If you know of anybody, let me know.
You will? Actually, I have a bunch of questions. First of all, thank you for everything. Do we but do we keep track of who's coming and any other kind of data behind them?
Like on the dashboard, that's kind of where, you know, the whole student, this might be more of a Sue question.
So we're looking at how to collect that information, and that'll be on the dashboards at the elementary and the middle level. We had to come up with a definition for community connected activities and learning, which that was part of our scorecard and student success, and then build that into the dashboard. So we've been working with IT, Mike Burrow, in collecting that as well as the administration so that that can be one of the metrics that we do measure as we continue to move forward.
Listening to these three wonderful young people, you know, clearly they're connected to the school. And we know when we have to work with kids and families who are in danger of being expelled. Most often we hear that they're not connected to the school. And so it's so important, you know, to give kids opportunities. Is this the first time that the bike rodeo is going to be out at Stilson?
Yes.
Are you concerned at all about kids not being able to get there? Because when it's been in town, they could always get there.
So we decided to have it at Stilson this year instead of Parkview because of the larger space, and then it's not so close to the road because I guess in past years there was concerns with students on their bikes starting out onto the main road, and so that's why we decided to have it out there. And we do know that there is some construction going on out there too, and we're aware of that, and we plan to communicate that out on all registrations. They get a confirmation.
Would you please track where they're coming from? My concern is that a lot of our kids of a certain age could get there on their own if it was Parkview. They can't get to Stilson on their own. And I would hate to see that kids are losing an opportunity, you know, because we have a wonderful facility, but it's not accessible to them. So, I mean, that's a concern. Are we still doing busing for the after-school program? No. And
We haven't done that for quite some time.
Maybe been gone for a while. Okay. Okay. Thank you. And Homework Central? No more?
Nope, it's there. Education Station.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I know.
Name change. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay or you guys can go.
You have the students a chance to leave. I know they've got probably homework to do and other things. Nice job. Nice job.
I have to follow that
All right.
first.
You can do it, Mr. Thompson.
I can do it.
Director Thompson with the Winter Activities and Athletics Recognition Report. All you.
You don't have to struggle. Bring students along, you wouldn't have to.
Yeah, they're all busy. Well, thanks for taking a little bit of time. It was awesome to hear from those students, though. I can tell you, they really kicked butt on that. This is the winter season wrap up, and when you go through this, it's like amazing that the season was only a couple months ago. Sometimes it feels like it was yesterday, and sometimes it feels like it was 10 years ago. So as you look through some of the pictures, and I get to reminisce through some of those, we'll take some of the highlights, try to keep it brief, but it was an interesting winter that we had. I started with our Mrs. Nichols. Kelly Nichols is one that prepared this for me, so a lot of shout outs to her, of course. But as we look at the state bound, we have a couple slides of state bound students, and the students' names are listed. But ice fishing, which is all volunteer based. Our advisors, mostly Mr. Bachenfeld at the high school, seeks out donations and really does some really cool things with the ice fishing team. The DECA team, of course, you heard from Addison. She's representing us at the world level, I think, or international level. This was the state-bound one. Of course, wrestling, we had Lila Paletta made it as the first female wrestler that we've sent to the state tournament. We sent Jonathan Krager, our first male wrestler, first wrestler at all since, I think, 2020. So it's been a few years, and Mr. Anderson, Coach Anderson's been building that up. About 35 kids in the wrestling program. Something to note, next year we do have, this is the first year that Chippewa Falls High School plans to start and grow a women's wrestling program at the WIAA level. It's been growing the last couple of years. I've worked with district administration to try to get an assistant coach that's specific to growing women's wrestling. So we had 3 or 4, Lila included. So we're going to try to grow that. And my hope is that once girls realize they're going to wrestle against other girls, that they'll be able to come out of the woodwork a little bit more. Up until this point, they've had to wrestle against boys or girls, mostly boys, that are at their weight class. So it is a cool new piece to Chippewa Falls School District. And of course, if you haven't heard, our gymnastics team did go to the state tournament. And I'll share more details on their championship here in a little bit. And as you can see, the beauty of having a school our size and a board support on being able to offer all of these activities. And this is just a quick snippet of those. FBLA, HOSA, I know that Addison's report mentioned those two. Visual Arts Classic, esports, of course, we know that they've been state champions in years past. Forensics, but you can see the names listed. It's a lot of students that are involved in these. A lot of those, forensics included, we're looking at about 30 students in forensics. About 6, 7, 8 years ago, we're at 3. So they're growing, and FBLA, FFA is not listed on here. Our students are getting more involved, which is a huge part to getting connected. I know Ms. Jasper just mentioned the importance of connectedness to our school, and at the high school level, we're very proud of that, to be able to offer that.
Off the top of your head, Mike, what's the percentage of our high school student body now involved in extracurriculars?
That are not, or that are?
That are.
60 to 65%.
It's grown.
Yeah, it's grown the last couple of years, and that includes, clubs, activities. So yeah, growing and have room to grow as well. As you can see, the Division I state champions in gymnastics was the Chippewa Falls gymnastics team. We had 3 seniors on that team, a really strong team. The only reason we didn't win one of our invitationals this year was because 2 girls were not available. One girl was in Peru, and one girl was at a interview to try to get a full academic scholarship, so they had bigger and better things, of course, for that weekend. However, fast forward to the state tournament weekend. In gymnastics, they do the team events on Friday night in Wisconsin Rapids, and all the individuals compete on Saturday. So I was able to go with my family to the state championship team on Friday. And it was the Friday leading up to our spring break, so a little nervous about the fan support, but we had a really good contingent of people there. And you have 4 events. So you have the floor, you have the vault, you have the bars, and you have the beam. And if you know anything about gymnastics, it's very psychological to be good. And the toughest one is the beam. That was our last one. We were clinging to a 1/10 point lead going into the last event, which is beam, which is the toughest. And our first girl fell on beam, which is it's like a half a point of deduction. And all the other girls had to lock in and stick it, which they did, and they came away as the state champions. It was very dramatic. It was very cool. It was one of those goosebump moments when you were there to be able to take that in. Wisconsin Rapids High School hosted it, and it was a pretty packed house. So pretty cool opportunity. They go from, I think it's 10th or 12th. There's 10 or 12 teams there, I forget. And then they start from the bottom and go up. So it's all this, building pressure and tension in the room. And the place exploded when we were able to announce that. Interestingly enough, Rice Lake won the Division II state championship. So Big Rivers Conference prevails in gymnastics. Our Visual Arts Classic got to go to state. This is one of their first times that they finished this high, and of course they came away with the state championship. I didn't add the video in here, but we did a March of Champions for both of these groups as well. And the Visual Arts Classic team, the gymnastics team was like, yes, look at me, we're good. They're doing flips in the hallway. Visual Arts Classic is like, I want this to be done as soon as possible. Which was fine, but we didn't make them do it, but we're like, let's go. And we have the pep band behind them. It was very fun. But there's this video that Miss Handrick had shared, and it was when they won it, and their faces were just lit right up. So they were able to do something very similar in the arts world with becoming state champions. We had a few signees, and we do a signing day for students that are signing athletic scholarships. And that's a difficult thing to do, as we all know. And actually next Wednesday, 2 Wednesdays from now, we're going to do a signing for anybody else that's going to go compete at the collegiate level. We have about, 12 to 15 students. It's on May 14th at 3:15 during prime. We're going to be in the gym. So if anybody wants to come to that, you're more than welcome. We have a lot of students that are going either Division III or going to go to Division II without getting an athletic scholarship. However, we did these signings. I think February 5th was the football one on the right. That's Jackson Boland. He's signed a letter of intent to go to Augustana. And you have on the left side, you have Sam Hebert. He's going to run track. He's a 400 runner. And on our track team, he's right now seated number 1, the fastest runner in the state in Division I. So, cross your fingers, he stays healthy and continues to run. He could be a state champion. He was part of the state championship in the 4x200 last year. So he's hoping to bring home some more hardware here. And Ava Krista there in the center, she is an all-around athlete. She was on the gymnastics state championship team, and she also has been on the podium for triple jump. So she's going to go to Winona State on a partial scholarship to go compete in track and field as well. Those are always fun days because students come to go see that, and their coaches speak, and their parents are there, and their family members are there. And it's just another step in their process. Jumping into the music department, again, one slide can never do it, but as you can see, we have a wire choir highlighted here, the jazz band world, and our harmonics team. The wire choir was actually able to travel on a bus to Nashville. Mrs. Goodman went along with them. It was a long trip and a long journey, but of course it was a fun time to go down to Nashville, which we all know is kind of the music capital of that area. Our jazz bands performed at the Big Band Bash and always do really, really well. And as you can see, Miss Mack even came on the stage for a song, which she is awesome.
Video if you will.
Yeah, we have video proof of that. And lastly, our harmonics team had probably one of their best years in recent memory as far as how high they had finished each each time they had gone to a performance, making the finals in all but one, which maybe that one was rigged, but we went to Holman, Altoona, Clare Memorial, Medford. We host our own early in the year. They kept getting better and better and better as the season went on, which of course is all about hard work and perseverance and determination. But I was able to go to the early season one and then see video from the late season one, and it's really cool to see how they continue to progress and they just get in sync and the songs are energizing. It's a fun group. Of course, Miss Mack leads that, and she does such an excellent job connecting with kids and getting the most out of kids. And then lastly, this is just kind of a collage of some really fun pictures that we've had, from swimming to basketball to hockey. A couple highlights, we had Sarah Chafee as a senior this year. She set the record for most three-pointers made in our women's basketball program. We were able to time it so Kayla Hanley, which is Kayla Frank now, who owned the record, she was able to come and present a plaque to her at the night that she broke the record. So that was a cool moment for us. Like I said before, with Lila Paletta making it to the state tournament for wrestling, that was a really cool moment. And our men's hockey team went over and kind of David versus Goliath and beat Stevens Point, which was the #1 rated team, #1 ranked team, 24-0. And we weren't supposed to have a chance, and we went over there and beat them. But like I said, not a lot of, I can't go through everything, but I can definitely tell you it was a fun winter. It was a fast winter. We had new coaches, brand new coaches, women's hockey, men's hockey, that are just starting to understand what coaching is all about and coaching student athletes here in Chippewa Falls. And it's been fun to work alongside them. Looking ahead at this spring, a big event that we host is our Big Rivers Conference track meet on Monday, May 19th. All of you are welcome to come and rake a jump pit or measure some shot puts or something along those lines. But that's going to be right out here at Doré Field. So hopefully we can have some good weather. I feel like that's all I've been doing is rescheduling the last couple weeks. But good weather and obviously healthy athletes as they make their way into regionals and sectionals and so on and so forth. So I think that's it. But any questions? Winter, I appreciate the time. I know it's a couple months removed, but looking forward to the spring or anything about the winter or any questions that you have for me.
Mike, just one thing, I have had the opportunity to watch the Wire Choir and some of the other groups around, and the outreach program that we're doing here, they're going to nursing homes and other places like that, can't be undermeasured. That it's really a good tribute to our students and to their directors and stuff that they're willing to get their kids out there in our community and just cheer up people for a day or so. So thanks for allowing them to do that.
If I could just share really quick, I did look at our dashboard. The graduating class of 2024, 52% students were self-reported as participating. The graduating class this year of 2025, 69%. So a really nice leap of percentage of students that are engaging in extracurriculars.
Thanks for looking that up.
Yeah, well, thanks for what you do to encourage kids to do that.
To give a special shout out to Ella Spaeth. Don't know who she is, but she made it to state in DECA and gymnastics. And while it's hard enough to just imagine trying to work that out in the end, the preparation that goes into it for her to be practicing for DECA and practicing for gymnastics at the same time is just amazing.
She's also the student that had to miss her Big Rivers Conference gymnastics meet in order to participate in on-campus interviews to try to be a finalist to win an academic scholarship, full scholarship to St. Thomas University. Now, the story didn't go perfect because she didn't end up getting it, but that's what she was missing it for because of her DECA experience and because of her academics. So, yeah, she's a pretty well-rounded person.
She's a very cool young lady. They're in class, so yeah, she's special.
Any other questions for our athletic director, Mr. Mike Thompson?
No, just a huge thank you to all the coaches and advisors and all the time and everything that they put in to give kids these opportunities. So. And you get to be the center point.
And offering esports and visual arts, whatever that's, is it the C back?
Yeah, class.
So, I mean, I never even heard of some of those things before I was on the school board. You know, it reaches out to other people. Ice fishing, yeah.
You letter and ice fishing?
We haven't crossed that bridge yet, but we can have those conversations.
Well, you need to see if you can find a more enthusiastic defensive coordinator for the football.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next we have 6.01, which is OE8 asset protection. Members of the board have received the CEO's monitoring report on OE8 asset protection. It is now the board's responsibility to consider the report as evidence of compliance in this area. Superintendent Holmes.
Yes, Mr. Chad Trowbridge has developed this monitoring report for your review. At this time, I will ask him to provide an overview of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. OE8, as mentioned, is about asset protection. So assuring that all of our district assets are adequately protected, properly maintained, appropriately used, and not placed at undue risk. Just to highlight some of the indicators here, OE8.1 is making sure that we have property and casualty insurance at 100% of replacement cost. OE8.2 is making sure that contractors, when on site, we require adequate builder's risk insurance. That's just a when needed basis. OE8.3 is making sure we have errors and omissions and comprehensive general liability insurance. OE8.4 is ensuring that all personnel who have access to material amounts of district and school funds are bonded, therefore offering a layer of protection. OE8.5 is making sure that our intellectual property, information, files, records, and fixed assets are protected from loss or significant damage. OE8.6 is not allowing our facilities or equipment to be subject to improper use or insufficient maintenance. OE8.7 is not recklessly exposing the district, the board, or staff to any sort of legal liability. OE8.8 making sure that we're not investing funds in investments that are not secured and are not authorized by law. Wisconsin's actually very, very strict about that. OE8.9, we may not purchase or sell real estate, including land or buildings, unless approved by the board, of course. OE8.10, not taking any action as a district that damages the district's public image or credibility. Just a couple highlights here. We do analyze our insurance coverages each year. We go through a renewal process, making sure that we're competitive, yet maintaining good protection for our district, that these markets have become a little tougher over the last decade. And in terms of investments, you do see in your financial package, we do maintain a solid yet conservative approach to investments, consistent with most public entities. Areas that we are focused on and continue to improve, cybersecurity does continue to be a threat for any public entity, private as well. It's really hard to know how much coverage is adequate. We have conducted and gone through threat assessments, and we have a cybersecurity response plan, which is very appealing to our insurance carriers. So we'll continue to monitor that, and we'll make sure that we make any adjustments as we move forward, making sure that we have those proper coverages.
Thank you, Mr. Trowbridge. At this time, I ask for the board's acceptance of the monitoring report.
Board members have any questions regarding the monitoring report before we decide to accept it as our own? Hearing none, I would look for a motion to accept OE8 asset protection as presented so that we make consider it further.
I'd make that motion.
Motion by McElwain, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Olson, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. OE8 asset protection is now the board's to consider. Board members have any questions before we decide, using our policy motion language, whether to find the district in compliance, not in compliance, or in compliance with noted exceptions? Hearing no questions, I would look for a motion using our operational expectation policy motion language.
I motion we accept the QOE8 Asset Protection Monitoring Report as presented, and that we are in compliance.
Motion by Olson that the district is in compliance with OE8 asset protection. Sound good? Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by McKillop. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The district board finds the district to be in compliance with OE8 asset protection. Thank you, Mr. Trowbridge. Next is OE10, communicating with the public. Members of the board have received the CEO's monitoring report on OE10, communicating with the public. It is now the board's responsibility to consider the report as evidence of compliance in this area. Superintendent Holmes.
Yes, I have developed this monitoring report for your review, and at this time, prior to giving the overview for the report, I would like to give a shout out to our PR specialist, Kathy Strecker. During the course of this past year, in her moving from Corger into our central office, she has done a fantastic job in regard to doing all the things that need to be done where this particular OE report is concerned. She's been a great asset in that regard, and I greatly appreciate the work. With that, I would like to give an overview. The Chippewa Falls Area Unified School District has demonstrated comprehensive communication efforts through both established channels and new initiatives like Beyond the Bell podcast and school board learning walks. Our district has maintained transparent two-way communication with stakeholders as evidenced by the 16 press releases issued and 72 events attended during this reporting period. We have successfully expanded our community partnerships, particularly through chamber connections and our addition to the WASB Business Honor Roll. The district has also been diligent in publishing the monthly board considerations, required annual progress reports, including strategic plan updates and financial information, thus ensuring accountability to our community. I respectfully request that the board find the district in compliance with all aspects of OE10 regarding communication with the public. I ask at this time for the board's acceptance of the monitoring report.
Any questions before we decide to accept OE10 as our own report? Hearing none, I would look for a motion to accept OE10 as our own report, communicating with the public, so that we can discuss it further.
I make a motion, sorry, that we accept OE10, communicating with the public.
Motion by McElwain, is there a second?
Second.
Second, McKillop. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. OE10 is now our report. To discuss further, board members have any questions regarding the contents of the report before we use our operational expectation language and vote on OE10?
Other than just to say thank you for the work that's been done on behalf of the district as well.
All right, hearing none, I would look for a motion using the operational expectation policy motion language.
I move that the district is in compliance on monitoring report OE10, communicating with the public.
Motion by McKillop, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Olson. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The board finds the district in compliance with OE 10 communicating with the public. Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next is the board's consent agenda under 7.01. Is any board member requesting the removal of any consent agenda item for separate consideration? Hearing none, I would look for a motion to approve the board's consent agenda as presented.
So move.
Motion by Jasper. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by McElwain. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. The board's consent agenda is approved as presented. Next is the superintendent's consent agenda. Under 8.01, board members have an option to remove for separate consideration any items of the superintendent's consent agenda. Is a board member requesting any such action? Hearing none, I would look for a motion to approve the board's consent agenda or the superintendent's consent agenda as presented.
So move.
Motion by Olson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by McKillop. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The superintendent's consent agenda is approved as presented. Under matters reserved for board action, no agenda item was removed from the board's consent. No agenda item was removed from the superintendent's consent. So under 9.03, consideration of Chippewa Falls Senior High kitchen remodel bids. Mr. Trowbridge.
Thank you. As part of some of our ongoing efforts to improve some of our food service areas over the last few years, the area that we're focusing on this year is to expand the serving area at the high school. Some very tight lunch periods at the high school, and this is an attempt to get our students through there in a more efficient manner. So looking at creating some additional serving lines. So this project was taken out to bid. Bids were open last Tuesday. We had 4 bidders submit bids. And we had several alternatives included in that, but Dell Construction was the low bidder. So our recommendation is to approve Dell Construction in the as the base bid, plus including 2 alternates, alternates 2, 4, and 5, to complete that project this summer for a total of $661,700. Because this is used, the food service fund is paying for this, so it is federally funded. So there's no general fund money that's going towards this project.
Thank you, that was my question.
I knew it was coming.
Just out of curiosity, how does ROM under food service equipment have a bid of negative $10,610 for food service equipment?
Don't have an answer for that. Equally perplexed.
Figure out a way to lock them in at that. Board members have any additional questions? Is the recommendation, I take it, is on the bid award letter?
It is, yep. And it should be included in here.
All right, so the recommended action, we would look for a board member to make a motion to award the high school kitchen remodel to Dell Construction with a base bid in the amount of $579,400 and alternates 2, $33,500, 4, $34,000, and 5, $14,800. Would any board member like to make such a motion?
Make a motion to accept the bid by Dell
Second.
Construction and the alternates.
Motion by Martineau, second by McElwain. Just to be clear, so I read is there any difference between just accepting the bid and the recommended action, Chad? I just want to make sure, do you need that language or?
As long as Dell Construction's mentioned with the alternates, I think that will suffice for us.
So accept the bid by Dell Construction. Okay, and is that your motion?
Yeah, Dell
With the
and the
alternates,
alternates.
2,
With the
4, and
alternates.
5, yeah.
Okay. And a second by McElwain. And you're able to, you got the language? Excellent. All right. Let's take a roll call on this one.
Dave Martineau?
Aye.
Sharon McElwain? Aye. Dennis Fear? Sherry Jasper? Aye. Maggie McKillop?
Aye.
Steve Olson?
Aye.
Dave Check?
Aye. All right, motion carries. The Dell Construction bid along with alternates 2, 4, and 5 are approved, and that bid letter, acceptance letter. Next is, and thank you, Mr. Trowbridge, 9.04, consideration of policy committee meeting notes. Mr. Fear is the chairperson, he's not here, so Ms. Jasper or Ms. McKillop.
So we met on April 17th to look at the policy that had to do with graduation requirements, as well as the policy that deals with third grade promotion. And this came about from Act 20 with the reading and Act 60 with the financial literacy requirement. And so with one of the recommendations for change was changing the, I can't remember what we had as financial literacy, but just aligning the language with what the state has. And as it was mentioned earlier from Mr. Newer, that financial class will be able to be taught by somebody with social studies license or a business ed license. And I don't know if Sue can, it's going to be a tiered. So our current freshmen starting next year will have this additional requirement versus our current sophomores through seniors will be on our current. So, and you'll see that when we get to the policy approvals, the language is in there, what will be added and not, and what is taken out. So we're basically adding a half required and removing a half elective to meet that financial literacy requirement. Is that correct, Sue?
Yep, and the half credit is a computer applications course that our freshman students would be required to take. So the incoming freshmen for next year would take a computer application course, which can be taught by any of our business education teachers. And then, as Peggy said, the current sophomores and juniors who will be taking their personal finance, so those will be done in tandem. And it's a 2-year rolling process. The reason why we, there are multiple goals with that. With the change of having requirements around state statute for human growth and development that takes place at 10th grade, we shifted health to 10th grade, which then created a challenge for the high school scheduling with regard to students being able to have places to go. When we were talking about what that could look like next year, our initial thought around that through the curriculum process was to develop a personal financial literacy course for freshmen, which is now an 11th grade course, but in the collaboration through the curriculum process, it was felt that the personal finance should remain at the junior level, and that one of the gaps that we saw through the curriculum process is that we don't have a required course, computer application course for our freshmen or any of our students. It's an elective course. So that's why we're asking that the board consider having computer applications required at the freshman level, which is a half a credit, additional required, but it's coming out of the elective pool. So the overall credits will not increase. Students will still need 28 credits. We're just asking that 16 and a half of those credits are required and the other are elective.
And that's mandated by the change in the law.
Multiple. So Act 60 and then as well as meeting the state statutes for health education. So it's really meeting, I don't want to say killing two birds with one stone, but doing that.
So one thing, this just may sound counterintuitive, but so the personal finance class, social studies teachers are automatic, I mean, they're essentially taught and trained to do that. How does that just, to me, doesn't sound like a social studies thing.
Yep, so, we had conversations, so it was, oh, can I talk about it? We had a collaborative effort with our business and our social studies teachers. Right now, there is a half credit of economics that is required by our students. In the curriculum process, we're looking at creating a consumer economics course down the road, so social studies teachers who are currently teaching economics, we would crosswalk the current economics course with the personal finance course that we have now to create a consumer economics that could be taught by either a social studies teacher or a business, which gives the high school admin more flexibility as far as who can teach that requirement and meet that requirement, and it helps with licensure.
Thank you.
So we're trying to be creative and remove some barriers that have been presenting themselves.
That and making sure you're meeting state statutes.
100%.
It sounds like you got the numbers and all the teachers and everything to match those requirements. We had to pick someone up to make sure that we could cover all that, right?
Yep.
Just for a 2-year period, yeah.
All right, anything to add to that, Sherry? Okay. Board members have any questions for the policy committee? Otherwise, the recommended action is to approve the April 17th, 2025 policy committee meeting notes as presented.
Motion.
Motion by Martin. Is there a second? Second by McElwain. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The April 17th, 2025 policy committee meeting notes are approved by the board. Next, under 9.05 is consideration of Neola policy revisions. Again, Mr. Fear is not here, so any other board member part of that, or is it Mr. Holmes going to be presenting on that?
Well, actually, I'm going to quickly shift over to Sue to talk about that policy committee proposal, graduation credit shift. Based on everything that I have heard, I was present for the presentation before taking it to policy committee. And then I got to hear it again once it was brought to policy committee. And based on everything that I currently know about this proposal, I think it is a solid proposal in regard to providing those things that are not only required by our students, but those things that make sense for this school district. So with that, if you would elaborate, Susan, on that.
Just did.
I know you
So,
did.
is this in the right spot? Policy committee proposal, it's under the consideration of Neola policies, but shouldn't it have been under 9.04, consideration of the policy committee meeting notes?
That was our meeting. We're
No,
recommending that you accept. The policy committee is recommending that the board accept these changes to our actual policy. The first document, that policy committee proposal, that's a nice document that Sue put together for the policy committee meeting to explain all of that. And then if you look at the individual policies, it will have the green, the language that's being added to the policy, and the strike out the red, the language that's being removed from the policy.
Okay.
So you can see instead of personal finance, it will now be personal financial literacy, and then we are adding that computer applications half required.
So under that, I guess the question would be, Sue, do you have anything addition to add from the presentation that was from the policy committee meeting notes?
I don't. The reflection of what we're asking is true to what the document is in board docs. And again, the biggest change would be starting with the freshman class next year. In order to graduate, rather than 16 required credits, those students will have 16 and a half, but it will not increase the 28 credit requirement. It will come in place of 1 half-credit elective. So the elective credit goes down by a half, the required goes up by a half.
Board members have any additional questions? Otherwise, the recommended action is to accept the recommended revisions to PO 5410, 5460, and adopt PO 5411 as presented.
So
She beat me to it.
Motion by McGillip, second by McElwain. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The board has accepted the recommended revisions to PO 5410, 5460, and adopted PO 5411 as presented. Thank you for your presentations on that. Next is 9.06, consideration of school meal prices. Mr. Trowbridge.
Many of you probably have not seen this in your work as a board member. Last time we increased our meal prices was in 2016. We go through a school lunch price equity calculator. We've been well below that amount for a long time. For the past 9 years, we've been requesting waivers from DPI to not raise our lunch prices. Part of that is due to the fact that the food service program has maintained a positive fund balance. Projects like you just approved, like this model, that for a few years, we are required to spend that down. Our most, within the last year, we did approve our new prime vendor contract with our food service providers. That cost was up about 40% over the last 5-year contract. Our staff, continue to advance in their compensation models. Our hope here is that we can make incremental small increases to our meal prices rather than a large jump every so often. So our recommendation is to increase our meal prices by 15 cents across the board for next school year.
What are they currently at?
Elementary breakfast is at 35 cents, so it would go to 50. Elementary lunch is at $2.25, it would go to $2.40. Middle school breakfast is at 85 cents, it would go to $1. Middle school lunch is at $2.50, would go to $2.65. High school breakfast is $1, it would go to $1.15. High school lunch, $2.50, would go to $2.65. Our adult breakfast is $1.60, it would go to $1.75. Adult lunch price is $4, would go to $4.15. And if a student would just prefer milk, it would go from 35 to 50 cents.
Board members have any additional questions regarding the proposal?
would our reduced prices still remain free?
They are currently remaining free, yes. Thank you. Good question. That's been a long time as well.
Or in personal finance terms, they're being increased by 100% to 0.
Teach a class.
Speaker.
You get a half a credit.
All right, if there are no other questions, the recommended action is to increase all school meal prices by 15 cents at the start of the 2025-2026 school year. Would any board member like to make such a motion?
So moved.
Motion by McKillop, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by McElwain. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The school meal prices will be increased by 15 cents at the start of the 2025-2026 school year. Thank you, Mr. Trowbridge. Next is 9.07, consideration of administrative structure. That's going to be, we'll start with Mr. Holmes? Or?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Jack. The Chippewa Falls Area Unified School District has carefully analyzed our administrative staffing needs with particular attention to the Assistant Director of Teaching and Learning position that provides critical leadership for curriculum development, assessment coordination, and professional development across the 9 school buildings. As noted in the board's background information, comparative data demonstrates that our district already maintains a lean administrative structure relative to similarly sized Wisconsin districts, with an efficient student to administrator ratio and one of the lowest average administrator salaries among comparable districts at $109,635. This position is essential for implementing our 7-phase curriculum cycle, managing federal Title I programs that fund 10.3 FTE positions, providing leadership for our 4K Cardinals program, and ensuring alignment with our district's strategic plan and multi-level system of support framework. Even with maintaining this position, the Teaching and Learning Department's proposed 2025-26 budget already shows a $51,057 reduction from the current year, reflecting our ongoing commitment to fiscal responsibility while preserving critical educational leadership capacity. Administration strongly recommends maintaining the Assistant Director of Teaching and Learning position as it represents the balanced strategic approach needed to sustain our educational mission and support the achievement of our students as presented in the board's background documentation. At this time, I'm open to any questions.
Board members have any questions?
So you're proposing to leave the structure as it is?
Yes, yes. Unfortunately, going through the 612 process that we did, we only had one candidate that really rose to the top, and that particular candidate determined that they did not want to accept the offer for that position. So based on what we knew about the candidate pool, we determined that it would be in the best interest to revert back to the Assistant Director of Teaching and Learning. Katie Koppenbarger is well prepared to be the director, and we would move her into Sue's old position in order to, then look towards hiring an Assistant Teaching and Learning Director.
You're not going to post the director position?
No.
So when we have new candidates or new positions like this, are we locked into the compensation package, or do you look at experience? Or when determining the compensation, so if we have a new person stepping in that doesn't have the experience or stepping in, are they still locked into that payroll compensation package, or do you adjust according to experience?
Right now, because you already have a step system created for the Assistant Teaching and Learning, they would be on the scale, depending on their years of experience and so forth. And because of the way we are structured as a school district, and as my role as superintendent, I do have the ability to spot administrative positions whenever it's deemed appropriate to do so. That has been utilized in this district for numerous years. This wouldn't be the first time that an administrative position's been slotted for Katie moving to the director's position. Based on what I saw from candidates and interviews that were conducted, Katie Koppenbarger is the most experienced and well-qualified person for that job.
I'm not saying she isn't, just for transparency purposes. I don't know that, I mean, and I don't know if I don't know what our policies say regarding that, but I just think.
I'm trying to think of a instance where somebody was slotted. I feel like they still had to go through the application.
Wouldn't that be in our policies somewhere?
That's it. I think Sarah was.
Some middle school, high school principals were swapped around at one point. That's probably what Jeff is referring to, with the precedent stuff. And sometimes central.
Switching people from one school to another, to me, is different than.
That might even been.
It's in one department. It's in the same department. For me, it would be a vast waste of our resources to take the time to open it up in that nature. Katie Koppenbarger is the logical choice to be the next director in our set.
I don't think anyone questions that, and as far as the resources, it's just a question of whether we have to or not. You know, if
And
the
the
board is
precedent-
comfortable that we don't have to.
Precedence is always.
Well, there's been several precedents during the course of this school's history. To your point, several principals have moved from one position to another, one school to another. There have been situations, Jamie Gansky was slotted into CVHS. What's that?
Derek Quinsman into the middle school.
Derek Kunzman was slotted into the middle school position. So there's definitely past precedents here of slotting.
So, I'm not on board with this position. I have been for the last 4 or 5 months trying to get this on the agenda.
This is on the agenda.
I know now it is, but it should have been earlier. The problem I have with this is that we are, and we'll get to it when we get to staffing, is we're cutting staffing at the middle school and high school once again to provide other areas to expand their personnel. I taught at the high school when we had almost 100 staff, and now we're down to 68. We just asked the community for a referendum, and we told them that the reason is that we were not going to lay people off or close positions, and now that's exactly what we're doing. It's an administrative position. I think most people in the school district do not see this as an essential to operate. Matter of fact, I think some of the people that are already in coaching positions are quite capable of doing their jobs without direct oversight. And Katie Koppenbarger, would be more than capable of handling those coaches doing their jobs. The position is $90,000, I do believe, plus benefits. That's $130,000. That would be at least 2 or maybe 3 new teachers if we hired them in the district. And I know there are people on this board that don't think class sizes are important, but I do. So I'm going to vote against filling this position, and when we get to the staffing, I'll have more to say on that. But I just don't think at this time we should be doing that.
Mr. Martineau, I'd like to ask you to retract that statement
Why?
that you just made about people on the board don't care about class size. You have no evidence.
Okay, well, then we're gonna find out when you vote tonight, aren't we?
I voted for the elementary redistricting.
I know,
Which would have reduced class sizes.
Yeah, but that wasn't a good model, so that's why it was voted down, and I wasn't the only one.
Can't have it both ways.
But the model that they were using is what we voted against. It wasn't lower class sizes. So I'm gonna tell you right now that we have given this a lot of money before. I know there's a 10-year history that we were given, but before that, we had 2 people in the curriculum department. And I've watched the middle school and the high school get gutted since 2010, right? And now they're down to 68 teachers. So filling another administrative position, right, at this time just sends a terrible message to our staff, and it kind of goes against what we ask the public for.
So, just to be clear, you're asking us, you know, we rely heavily on the people that we hire. We've hired a superintendent, we've got Mr. Trowbridge that handles the business, we've got Mr. Noor that handles our people. You're asking us to take their opinions, that they've spent a full time looking at this entire issue for the last year, and we're supposed to change our mind and just go with what you wanna do, just based on this is your
Well,
proposal.
since I taught in the district for 30 years and I've had plenty of experience with the curriculum department, that would give me a leg up on some people. And so what I'm asking for, you can vote for it, but I think when you do vote for it, you send a clear message to the staff, and morale is already not at a
See, you're sending the message to the staff by what you're saying with conflating
No, it's
two
not.
issues. If anything, the only staff that would be laid off is because we have less kids. There's no budget cutting
But
on
the
staff.
high school doesn't
And
have
anyway,
less
that's
kids.
outside of what we're talking
No,
about.
the high school doesn't have
For
less
you
kids.
to bring
Look
up
at the
the
data.
staff, for you to bring up the staff when we're talking about here, that's not on the
Okay.
agenda right now.
Then
This
I'll
is
bring
what
it
we're
up
talking
in the
about, is this
staffing
position.
plan. I'm just telling you, it's coming.
Okay, and you've had your say on it.
Good.
Now, I do also want to address the second part, because I think other board members need to be comfortable on that before we go forward. Does our superintendent have the ability to slot this position? I suppose we should break it down into two votes. First of all, the vote is whether or not we approve these positions,
Or this position.
right? And then the second
We
question would
have
be
this
whether.
position, so
You don't really need to
we
approve.
don't need to
The
vote unless
staffing
we're
plan?
changing, we're not doing the staffing plan right now.
Okay.
This is the teaching and learning position. Our policy states that if there is a change in our organizational structure, then the board needs to approve that. So if we're going to leave our operational, or organizational structure as it currently sits, then we don't need to vote. But if we're looking to change it, then we would need to vote. I would like to say, we have to remember, you know, our statement, right? Like, it's about the kids and giving kids opportunities and whatnot. And I know there's research out there, right, that a curriculum and instruction or teaching and learning person is very important to a district. We're, you know, like 5,000 students, but I know Bloomer, Cadott, many districts smaller than us have this position as well. And I remember I worked at the middle school, and I remember, you know, elementary kids coming from 5th grade into 6th grade. There was a struggle because we didn't have K through 12 alignment of our curriculum. And there's been so much work, and that is so important that, I mean, I would worry about not having that person. I mean, for the strategic plan and the professional development, all the pieces that have to happen to support our teachers so that they can provide the instruction to the kids. And to put that on the coaches, like, I mean, here, you have a full-time job, have another one.
Well, I will say this, is that when we started on this curriculum, expanding the curriculum department, our curriculum was all over the place. So we've done the heavy lifting. But at this time, when we're talking about not filling high school and middle school positions, and we haven't even got to the interventionists that we're adding as well, I just can't, in good conscience, vote for this position, so.
Steve and Sherry, I want to hear from you guys, and you too, Sharon.
I don't believe we need to vote for this position because it is a position within our structure already. And there's no reason, there's no changes. So we don't need to vote.
So just a question, the recommended action is to allow the hire of the Assistant Director of Teaching and Learning as presented. You're saying that we don't need to do that, but then the second question is, and then you would have everything that you need because it's your understanding under our current policies that you can fill that position on your own with what we have.
Yes.
So is there any reason for us to vote on this? There seems to be the consensus that this is staying the same, so we don't have to vote on it, and it's essentially approved.
My response to that would be board's will, whatever you as the board decide to do in that regard. I think a lot of it in the staffing plan would be determined at that time. Currently in our staffing plan, it does include the assistant teaching and learning. Otherwise, it would have had to been taken out before presenting the staffing plan to the board. So I do believe it can probably work in multiple ways, and I would look to Angela and Peggy, given their backgrounds on that language, but I think it would be board's will.
Well, here's the other thing is, it changed the name, changed the pay scale. It's a new position, isn't it?
No. It is not. And I do need to, when you brought up that under the referendum that we told people that jobs would be saved, at every single event that Mr. Trowbridge and I attended and gave explanations to people, we explained to people that it was to maintain jobs and positions with the caveat of right sizing in mind due to our declining enrollments. That was also discussed at length with a lot of people during the course of those conversations. You know, one of the things for us and why we took that so seriously is adjusting what the administrative team looked like last year. We did reduce by one full administrator on our team last year.
Well, prior to 2010, we had 16 administrators. We now have 28. So, and our student population has gone up and is now coming down, as you have told everyone. So, I personally don't see a need for this. If you guys do, then you go ahead and vote for it. That's fine. But I have to say my piece about this.
Steve, anything to add?
We have a budget that includes this. I hate to start taking things away. And I know that we're talking staffing here too. I know that prior to 2015, before we had the assistant position, we also had a full-time gifted and talented position that was basically doing some of this stuff too. So there's always been a position to kind of overlap some of this stuff. You know, I hear what you're saying, but until we actually know what our funding is going to be next year, we've got our budget. It looks like we need to keep moving forward. We can't go backwards. And if that means, I feel like we can't take things away that may help the kids. I guess, so that's where I'm sitting.
Well, I have mixed feelings about this, because I understand what everybody's saying, but I also think the optics of filling administrative positions and eliminating teachers is a bad practice. That's just my personal feeling. And I mean, if you've slotted people into different, and I know that's a side note, but I think that practice probably shouldn't continue because there's not much transparency. We're a public entity. We're subject to open records. I think those positions should be posted. This is just my personal feeling. That's what we do at the county. It doesn't matter if a person likely will be the one who did it. I think we need to give opportunities to everybody. So, right. That's
Is
just,
that something that we should take a look at our policy
I
committee?
really think, I don't know what the policy says, but I think we should.
Go ahead, Mr. Noor.
So currently in policy 3132 vacancies, it shall be the policy of the board to employ the person best suited to perform the duties of a particular district vacancy at any level. Vacancies shall be announced in accordance with the district's established procedures. Vacant positions shall be posted for internal and external applicants with the same open and close dates. All qualified candidates will be reviewed and considered for the next steps in the hiring process. The superintendent of schools shall establish procedures to facilitate the identification and evaluation of candidates for administrative, supervisory, and other leadership positions.
So that's subject to a lot of interpretation right there. It is, well, first of all, the question here seems easy because the board seems comfortable that we don't have to do anything under the recommended action here because there's no increase in positions. And that's where we're at for right now, correct? So it sounds like we all feel more comfortable not voting on this essentially because we don't need to. Is that accurate? Unless
we don't
anyone
vote
wants
on
to
it,
make a motion.
Yeah, you don't need to make a motion if it's gonna stay in there. So, because that's how it exists.
And if anybody has any questions about how that language has been interpreted in the past, because it does seem to say the superintendent does have that, we could always take a look at it in the policy committee.
I think you could interpret it either way, to be completely honest.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
But that's because we're lawyers.
I know, it depends.
You argue that side, I'll argue this side.
Okay, works for me.
But the part that she just read was the post internally and externally. That's the part that gives me pause.
Except for the second part. I mean, but again, we have the ability to take a look at that if we want to do it differently and make it clear that we would be posting even for directors and administrative positions. But that's not for tonight regardless, so it's just something to consider.
I think a lot of this changes until we actually get numbers for our budget. I mean, if the state doesn't come through with what they're proposing, everything's on the table at the next budget period. Unfortunately, you know, so.
It's true.
So I guess that's the hard part about this. We don't know where our state funding's going to be. We even question sometimes where our federal funding's gonna be in some states. So a lot of this could be a moot point if we get to our next budget period or we find out in October where our money is. We may have to be looking at this again.
All right, board members, any additional discussion on this other than that we're just gonna take no action and it is what it is. All right, thank you, Mr. Holmes. We will then move on to 9.08, which is consideration of the 2025-2026 staffing plan. And that will be Ms. Denora.
Thank you. I'm just waiting to get connected. Just a bit larger. All right. So this recommended staffing plan looks very similar to the preliminary staffing plan that was shared with you back in March. Some adjustments and additions have been made to hopefully better lay out more clearly our recommended staffing plan. We worked to keep our mega result at the forefront as we worked through some really tough decisions, conversations, and prioritization, and came together as a large group of administrators to make the best decisions that we could with the parameters set for us. Just as a reminder, the pupil counts were used from January, April 1st, and also our third Friday count, and those will come in a little bit later when we look at specific schools. So this would be something that was not in the original preliminary staffing plan. So what this page shows is what our overall recommended increase or increases would be for the 25-26 school year based off of what was approved in the 24-25 staffing plan. So right now, we are recommending an increase of 3.2 FTEs. They would come in the form of an addition to the specially designed PE program to allow us to meet the needs of our students with IEPs who have specially designed PE in their IEPs at the K-8 level. It would also include the addition of 2 educational assistants, one at Hillcrest Elementary and one at Southview. There were additional requests for educational or special education assistants made by our supervisors and our principals. However, both Hillcrest and Southview have been supporting students this entire school year with LTEs in positions, and those student needs will not be changing moving into next year, which is why they're showing up on our staffing plan. Additionally, we are recommending the addition of an early childhood teacher. That individual would be housed out of Southview but would serve our district. Our needs of our pre-kindergarten students are significantly increasing in our community and in our district, and so an additional teacher to manage those caseloads is necessary for our students who are not yet at our elementary buildings but will be coming to us as our future students. So again, it's broken down by hourly and certified, but overall it's an increase of 3.2 FTEs for around $222,000. I also have Schedule C at the bottom. That's not incorporated into that total of FTEs up above, and I'll talk more about Schedule C in a little bit. The table that you do see at the bottom, you'll see on the next page too, is the comparison. We are recommending a decrease of 5.44 FTEs, so for an overall decrease of staffing for next year compared to this year. The charge of our elementary level was to remain staffing neutral from this year to next, and a charge of our secondary was to make some reductions, and then reductions in all other areas that the supervisors or administrators felt were possible. So our reductions would happen in food service at 0.44 reduction. The other thing that's really important to note about the overall recommended decreases is no one is being laid off and no one is losing a job. These are through attrition, be it resignation or be it retirement. And so again, no staff are losing jobs over these recommended decreases. So the 0.44 decrease at the middle school and food service is due to the declining enrollment and the number of middle school students going down. Ms. Lang felt that she could make that contribution to decreasing in staffing. We already did decrease the school counseling position of the pupil services at the beginning of this school year by reducing the Jim Falls Parkview 2.0 school counseling positions down to a 1.5, keeping the 0.5 out at Jim Falls. So we have been operating down that half FTE this entire school year, but a 1.0 was in the staffing plan for this year. At the high school, they did reduce by overall 1.5 FTEs. That goes back to that Act 60 and the different requirements to have our credits met, required credits met by our students. So it's a combination of a decrease in tech ed, foreign language, and math to accommodate that need in the area of business and or social studies. At the middle school, you'll see that they reduced by 3 FTEs, one an administrative assistant, and then 2 teachers. We are moving to an English language arts kind of title of reading and English, and so we don't need to require a specific reading license for instruction and for those students in English language arts. And so that also opens up some licensure freedom for our teachers. And so we didn't need to replace specific reading teachers when retiring is one of the ways we were able to reduce at the middle school. So again, reducing by 5.44 FTEs, about $474,000. So overall, with our increases of the 3.2 FTEs that we're recommending, and again, there were more requests for additional increases, but through some tough conversation and prioritization, this is where we have arrived in what we're recommending. So we would be down 2.24 FTEs overall for around a decrease of $252,000. Again, that's during the day building staffing. I just have to make this a little bit smaller. So more specifically, when we look at departments, you can see that there were increases made at the elementary level throughout the 6 buildings, but there are also decreases or shifts made. And so it comes out to be staffing neutral. Hillcrest is going to be up a section compared to where they are this school year, but Parkview will be down a section compared to where they are this school year. So again, at the elementary level, it's neutral. You've seen the middle school decrease, the high school decrease. Chippewa Valley, Superintendent's Office, Finance and Operations Office, and Buildings and Grounds all remain neutral. Food service, that decrease that I mentioned earlier. Instructional Service Department remains neutral. And then there is that increase in the Student Services Special Education of the 2.7. That again would be at Hillcrest Elementary, Southview Elementary, district-wide early childhood, and then the increase in the K-8 specially designed PE. Leaving Human Resources, Educational Technology, and Cardinal Community Learning neutral. Questions so far on that information? I do have more to share, but want to answer any questions that might be relevant now.
Will there be any additional funding available because of the additional special education positions from the federal funding or anything like that? Is there any other funding that we would?
Anticipating that.
Are we anticipating reductions?
Preparing for the possibility, but kind of cautious approach right now would be neutral, that we'd see the same funding for next year. Beyond that, may look different.
In regards to Schedule C, and what you got to hear Mr. Thompson share about tonight, we are looking to make some additions there as well. So looking to have some additional support in different clubs, such as Green Team being added, an additional FFA advisor being added due to student interest, the addition of an assistant football coach, the addition of a paid equestrian coach that has been a volunteer position for a handful of years, and so we'd be moving that to a paid Schedule C position. And then also, as Mr. Thompson alluded to, the developing and growing of a women's wrestling program, we would add in a women's head assistant wrestling coach for next school year. The middle school did not have any increases in Schedule C. The elementary is we're recommending 6 position increases at the elementary, specifically around student council advisors. We believe that having someone who can take on that responsibility and lead will help with our students in the development of community participation and being aware of their impact on the community larger than themselves. Those are paid positions at both our middle schools and our high schools. And then finally, for the district increase overall, as part of OE5, it is an expectation that we have a mentor program for all of our employees, and we are in the continual development of our hourly or classified mentor program development, but needed to be able to support some financial incentive and recognition for those hourly staff members who would take on that duty and responsibility to help support our new hires and transition into our district so that we can retain good people and keep them here. So that's a large number of increased positions. And then the other one is the photographer. We currently have one photographer position for the entire school year, for the entire district, for all the events that are going on, and we are looking to have a photographer that can support our district in the events both or for the fall, winter, and spring seasons. We currently again have one, and we'd be looking to add 2 additional. So that's kind of the high overview. Much of the rest looks the same, but there have been some additions based on feedback that I received in the preliminary. So this page 14 highlights and shows what our elementary section prediction will be for next year. Again, in 2024, or for the 2024-25 school year, the board approved 86 sections at the elementary level. And so that was our staffing neutral, was to stay at 86 sections, even though last August, the board did approve the addition of a kindergarten teacher at Homestead and a 2nd grade teacher at Hillcrest, taking our section numbers to 88 this year. Because that was not part of the staffing plan, 86 is the number that our elementary principals were charged to work with. So you'll see that our class size parameters still remain what they are on the screen. And so of the 86 sections predicted for next year, again, these are using April 1st numbers, and we know that they will fluctuate some. There are 32 sections that will be within our parameters, 10 sections that will be above, and 44 that will be below our parameters. The piece that makes things challenging about the yellows, especially when we get to our upper grades, is, for instance, if you look at Hillcrest, right there at 66 in 3 sections, it says that it's yellow and it's below our parameters, but as soon as we condense to 2 sections, it goes from yellow to red, because we're unlikely to have 33 students in a classroom at the elementary level. So that's why we have more yellows, because if they're not yellow, then they become red. Questions around this elementary section page?
These are based, I know historically, a lot of people wait for registration until the week before school starts. Do you try to factor some of this stuff in when you're estimating things?
Over the last few years, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Trowbridge, our third Friday counts seem to be fairly similar to what the numbers are that we're working off of. It just might not be the same at Parkview that it was at Southview, so the total number more so stays the same, but it might be at a different school, and so there might have to be shifting of staff members later in the game based on where those enrollments come in.
And if I might add, our 4K number is pretty indicative about what our kindergarten number is.
So just so you have a little bit more information, you will see each of the elementaries, but I did add some more information again based on feedback that I had received from board members. So you'll see the total number of students as of the third Friday count for the 24-25, as well as how many sections those students currently are in parentheses behind, and then the total of students at the end. Then using the April 1st numbers, you'll see how many students are anticipated to be in those grade levels next year, how many sections are predicted, and then the movement of that grade level up or down of students, and then you can see the total number of students up or down from this year to next year predicted. So that is included for all of the elementary schools. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out, this is a good example of Homestead where they're staying neutral because they're requesting an addition at first grade, but there's a reduction at second grade, so it remains neutral. You can still see all the justifications within here. You're also going to be able to see the requests that weren't able to be upheld. I did not remove those, however, I did strike those. Southview would be a good example to see those with the determination to not add an additional section at first grade and fourth grade. That then took away the need to add additional art, music, and PE. However, I will note that our art, music, and PE teachers, along with our principals, are working on a solution to the shared staff between Southview and Jim Falls and supporting our students in those instructional areas so that they have a more like experience to the students in our other 4 elementary schools that don't need to go in class in halves or don't need to have different adjustments made because of the shared staff. So they're currently working to meet and problem solve around that. Just want to make sure that you have an explanation of all the information that's in here. And I think the only other thing that will look a little bit different to you is that I have included an updated, sorry if you get motion sickness, I have updated the Schedule C as well, so you have a visual of all of the positions and all of the opportunities really that we offer our students, where those increases happen at the high school, neutral at the middle, and then the change at elementary, and the change at the district level. Questions or clarifications that you have or need?
For me, maybe some more clarification around those elementary specials, because I know that it originated with, like, we needed to give increased minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, so to meet our PE requirement of when we have 5 instructional days, and Sue, please jump in. But when we have 5 instructional days, they need to have PE 3 times within those 5 instructional days. So to determine that rotation, we wanted to have music, art, and Phi Ed all have the same number of minutes for instruction, and then work in music and art, but not necessarily 3 times in 5 days. And so for the share to work between Southview and Jim Falls is a 6-section school, and right now Southview is a 14-section school, and so that's 20 sections, but 18 sections is really what we're working around as the full-time equivalent of a music, art, and PE teacher, and we don't have any more time to pay them an overload to do those 2 extra sections. So what's happening is the sections at Southview or classes at Southview, the 3 sections are going in 2, so class and a half to music, art, and Phy Ed, to bring it down to 12 music, art, Phy Ed classes at Southview and 6 at Jim Falls to make the 18 to make that full-time position work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the work you've done on this. I appreciate it. As promised, I'm going to talk about the high school. The 2 positions that don't make any sense to not fill. I know they're not layoffs or firings, but a math teacher, looking at our math scores currently, we have somewhere around 55, if I had it here, generally about 55% of our students are approaching or developing, which is not where we want our math students to be, and so cutting a math teacher will raise, right, the number of students in each one of the math classes. I'm not worried about the AP kids as much as I worry about the kids that struggle with math, and to put them into larger and larger class sizes will be counterproductive. If we're looking to bolster our math numbers, which I think the community would say is really an important skill, is that cutting that or not filling that position really doesn't make much sense to me at all. The other one that doesn't make sense is the tech ed position, which, if you know the high school, there are a certain number of students that are academically driven to go to college, but we have a substantial number of our students who are very interested in the trades. Cutting a tech ed teacher at this time does not, or excuse me, not filling that position just seems like we're giving them less opportunities to explore the trades. And I think if Mr. Fear was here, he's always been advocating for more apprenticeships, getting kids into the work field, getting them trade experience. This just doesn't make any sense not to fill those 2 positions. Now, again, we've added other positions other places, but then we go back to the high school and we just basically take the positions out of there. And it's not healthy for the high school. Like I said, we are not destined, and if you look at the graphic that Mr. Nora was kind enough to put on there, at least the next 2 years, we're going to have a consistent population at the high school. Now, it may drop out after that, but given that, I just can't see us not filling a math position and working with kids to get them into either meeting expectations or advancing. And so I know there's also foreign language on there too, which I feel bad about. I don't know as much about that position, but it just seems like every time we need to do something, the high school's the well. Well, the well is dry. Stop taking positions from the high school and the middle school. We can find money. My suggestion would be, if we don't use the land acquisition fund of $350,000 and we didn't fill the teaching position, that'd be almost $500,000 we could use to keep teachers that we really need to do at the high school and the middle school, for that matter. So I'm going to let the conversation play out, but I'm going to make a motion later when we get to the end of this conversation.
Mrs. Junior, I do not understand all the ins and outs of staffing. You know, I worked in the district. I've been very involved at the board level. I do not have the knowledge you all have. I would like to hear more about the reduction of the math position at the high school and the tech ed position. Just because the math one intuitively also, as a core subject, does put that position below the other core subjects by 1 FTE of English, science, and social studies. So I'd just like to hear more about that decision making, and you know, with some of what Mr. Martineau shared as concerns about that academic year especially.
Can the board go to page 39 of the high school? justifications for things were provided within the document. You know, and I would look to Ms. Deneur and possibly Ms. Kern and for Chad to weigh in on some of these things. Because I do want the board to understand how difficult it is to put together a staffing plan for a district our size. To Mr. Martineau's points earlier about, you know, going at the middle school and the high school first, that has definitely not been the case. The elementary schools took the very first hits during the course of the declining enrollments that occurred. Ms. Zarar has tremendous experience with that, and Ms. Deneur. Elementary schools were taking the brunt of the reductions when declining enrollment first impacted this district. And I only learned that because of my interest in history and having conversations with individuals that were close to those things. You know, declining enrollment is working its way up. There's declining enrollment at the middle school, there's declining enrollment at the high school. Things are occurring in our world that have made it certainly more difficult to provide all the services that we would like to provide. For instance, on that technology education teacher, in there it is explained that there was an opening all year for a tech ed position, and they weren't able to find a candidate to be able to teach it. Also in here, when you talk about the math, that's also explained that, you know, we're still able to maintain the 28 to 32 students per class, and a decision was made in regard to moving from 9 to 8 math teachers. You know, so a lot of this is explained in the background documents for board members, and it is quite in-depth. The total pages, I know that board members would have been required to go through is 66, which is quite a bit. But there is a lot of background information that is provided by our personnel in regard to justifications and rationales behind the decision making. You know, Mr. Trowbridge, could you elaborate a little bit for board members in regard to Mr. Martineau's comment regarding middle and high school taking the first hits with declining enrollment?
Well, I'm talking over a longer period than you've been here, so yes, the elementaries,
why
I
I'm
would agree.
agreeing,
That's why I'm going to agree that the elementaries have taken the hit of late. But over the period of time, I still remember when the high school had almost 100 teaching staff, and now we're down to 68. And so, and 38 to 32 students per classroom, maybe for high-functioning math students, but for kids that are really struggling, you can't get anywhere near that if you really want to teach math. Plus, you know, those kids often need, right, some sort of relationship with the teacher, and having 32 in a classroom doesn't really cut it.
So before we go to Mr. Trowbridge to answer the question that was asked him, just so that we're clear, these class size parameters came from the board, I believe, 28 to 32 in math. We're meeting that. If the justification for your argument is class size, we're meeting that by cutting the math teacher. Why wouldn't you be more concerned about the fact that we should add a teacher in second grade Homestead where they have 47 kids, or Southview where we have 49 kids, two classes of 25 and 24 when the parameters are 18 to 22? If class size is your number one justification, then don't just say we're cutting a math teacher and we got to do something about that. That's where we would be focused, is where we're over.
And if you remember, I have said this on more than one occasion. The expectations or the parameters that you have worked 25 years ago. They don't work currently. Given the number of students with IEPs, which have gone from less than 10% of our population to now 19% of our population, with the behaviors we see, with the mental health issues that we see, you cannot put 32 kids in a class.
Point being, why would we have that discussion now when we've chosen 28 to 32? We've told them to work their entire system around that, spend this entire last year putting this together, and then we're going to tell them, oh, something different.
I don't know.
Go ahead, Mr. Trowbridge, answer the question.
Thanks. I guess I can't speak for all 30 of the last years here, but I can speak for many of them. And really, it's about revenue limits. of those 30 years, 25 of those years, our district was a growing district. Even as a growing district, we've had to make reductions system-wide over time. We've made some additions too, but we've also had to make reductions at all levels. Regarding declining enrollment, that's a newer phenomenon for us, and it sucks. It really does suck. But it does force us to have to make reductions probably year in, year out for the foreseeable future. And I agree, hard focus on declining enrollment has been at the elementary level. And what we're trying to do is prep the secondary level for the fact that unless something changes, there's going to be reductions and fewer students at both middle and high school in the coming years. Maybe not today, but in the coming years, that will be the case.
And if I may add to that, part of our philosophy in trying to be proactive in planning is to do our best to not hire someone to have to lay them off in 2 years, especially if we have the staffing to stay within the expectations we've been given around class sizes. So that's part of the rationale and conversation. The other piece, the high school admin laid it out well for the tech ed. We have amazing teachers, tech ed, math, K-12, right? Amazing teachers who will do anything we need them to do for our students. However, expecting overload upon overload upon overload because we can't find somebody to fill that position who meets the qualifications for the compensation that we can afford to pay. I think we sometimes need to be watching out for our staff, and not because they don't want to do everything they can for our kids, but that can be very challenging, and it can be hard to say no to doing what they believe is right for our kids too. And in addition to being down sections in tech ed, I know that that's a very strong department in our district, and we have been a leader in the BRC with the number of staff members and what we're able to offer. I think some of the work we've been doing with CTE as well, and the opportunities that Laura and her team are working to create for our students allows for some of that learning to potentially occur off-site and on a work site that maybe in the past has been done more in a classroom in that department. Again, I'm not overly well versed at the high school level at this point in time in my career in this position, but I trust that the recommendations and the conversations that we've been having with the administration are really truly in the best interest of students and staff.
Okay. Which tech ed position didn't get filled?
Mr. Hebel's position didn't get filled, so it was like a
So welding, which
heavy.
right now is a hot trade to get into, and for many of my students that I had military history, which was not a required course, I had a lot of welding kids in there, and it was the highlight of their day. I have to believe that the board is willing to do more to make sure that we get a candidate for that position.
We still provide welding.
What?
That course did not go away. That course is still offered to our students in the tech ed department, so.
Yes. How many sections do we have of welding though?
I don't know how many sections, but we.
So we used to have a full-time teacher for
Maybe
welding.
Adam, you would know how many sections?
I mean, we're still running practical welding, you know, and then we're also doing the manufacturing. I don't have it in front of me, but we are doing everything we can to continue to provide all the different areas in the tech ed department that we have in the past, but obviously less sections of those or not being able to offer to a group of kids. So you might have 70 to 80 kids who were looking to get that course. They have to go somewhere else. We're gonna have to find a different spot, but we're continuing to offer, like I said, the welding. We're just continuing to offer, one of our instructors is going back to, his passion is the automotive area, because we have that there. We're one of very few schools, I think, around that are still able to offer that. So within the department we have, we're doing our best to continue to offer that diversity. But it's challenging, like we're seeing here tonight. It's tough. It's tough work.
I'd like to echo the sentiment of thanking you guys for what you do.
Oh, yes.
And what you put together, because, you know, we all know you're facing the challenges of the class sizes that we're telling you that we want and that the parents are telling you that they want. classes that we want offered. We don't want people to be laid off if we can help it, so we're telling you to fill by attrition. We're telling you to fit within the budget that we're given by the state, by what's projected. There's so many variables, and I just want to say, the worst thing that we could do for you tonight would be to change the variables at the last minute. It's hard enough trying to fit all those things together, and I think you've done a pretty good job of it. Especially when you didn't vote on, again, because you're balancing parents don't want to move their kids. Parents want small class sizes. It's almost impossible to do both, so.
And I'd like to echo that. When I get passionate about this, especially Mr. Noor, it is not you. I am trying to challenge others in the room and the community to give us more resources to get these things done. But I still, for the life of me, knowing teaching at the high school as long as I do, knowing the kind of students we do, having less tech ed, less math for struggling students is not in their best interest. So I'm going to make a motion to reinstall the technology education and math positions at the high school. So I'm looking for a second.
Motion by Martineau. Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Board members, any additional questions regarding the staffing plan? I know the presentation was just completed and we haven't really even gotten to our questions yet. So I should say, anything additional to present on this?
Not at this time.
Board members, questions regarding the staffing plan?
Sherry, did you get your question answered?
I did.
Okay.
But thank you for checking. And I appreciate that because I know it's here and I read the materials. You know, Sarah, the big piece for me that I wanted to hear was that reminder of, and Dave, you lifted it up so well, whether we like it or not, and we basically don't, right? We have agreed on class sizes that we're willing to live by. And I think that's important, and that, you know, our commitment is to attrition where we can, rather than, I mean, not rather than, what we'd like to do is hire somebody, and yet we have to make those tough decisions.
May I make a comment? Sure. Thank you for saying that, because one of the things that I want to assure our staff and our community and families is that the administrative team here in Chippewa Falls is a very caring administrative group. Again, I too have been in education for several years now, been in administration now for 20 plus years. And in terms of administrative teams that I've been associated with during that course of time, when I look around the room and I think about all the principals and others that aren't in the room, these are very hard decisions to arrive at. And we too, as administrators, do not necessarily like the job that we've been given and what we have to do in many regards. What I do appreciate most about the people in this district, regardless of whatever position they hold in it, is people here clearly understand that they do the best they can with the resources they have available to them. It is just that kind of district. When Mr. Thompson was doing his presentation and showing that the number of students is increasing in extracurricular activities, the information that Ms. Zenner was able to share in regard to the CCLC and the things that they've been able to accomplish and what they're seeing with their students. Again, I'm going to be so happy to bring forward those presentations from the middle and high school in regard to a lot of how discipline and attendance rates are improving drastically. You know, this staffing plan that was brought forward tonight, a lot of thought goes into it, a lot of sweat is poured into it, And again, to points brought up, we wouldn't have brought it forward to you if we didn't think this is what we need to do at this particular time. I am an internal optimist. Everybody that I think I work with are optimists as well. Mr. Trowbridge and I both are hopeful, based on conversations that we've held with legislators and others, that, you know, possibility does exist for our lawmakers to help out school districts with the school funding formula. So I just want to thank you for what you stated and just make that clear to everyone that, you know, I do believe we are a district that leads with both a head and a heart.
And I hope that, you know, that there can be an understanding that this isn't easy for anybody, and yet we have to make the decisions that are before us.
Board members have any additional questions regarding the 2025-2026 staffing plan?
I just have a comment regarding the technology education, because that is important here. That's come out in our community conversations. But unfortunately, there is a shortage of tech ed teachers, so you know, it's a hard spot, because if you can't get a teacher to teach those kids, you know, I hope that we can still be creative and maybe, you know, kids that want to go down that track or whatever, find them, you know, appropriate opportunities and whatnot. But, you know, and maybe encourage some kids to go into technology education.
Any additional questions? Otherwise, I would look for a motion.
I move that we approve the 2025-2026 staffing plan as presented.
Motion by Jasper, is there a second?
Second.
Second by McKillop. Any further discussion? Quick roll call, please.
Sherry Jasper, aye. Peggy McKillop,
Aye.
Dennis Fear, Dave Martineau,
No.
Sharon McElwain,
Aye.
Steve Olson,
Aye.
Dave Check.
Aye. Motion carries. The board approves the 2025-2026 staffing plan as presented. Thank you all for your work in it. Next is the consideration of the 2025-2026 preliminary budget plan. Mr. Trowbridge.
Thank you. Just an update since our last meeting. Since the March meeting, we have reviewed all of our budget inputs. We reviewed all of our staffing requests and reductions, retirements, et cetera, which we just finished discussing. And then we worked to balance all of our funds with available revenues. So just some things about what's included in the preliminary budget. Our strategic planning initiatives, that's our alignment check. Probably the most important part of the budget is that it aligns with our strategic priorities. The staffing plan was just approved and Ms. Denur presented on, aligning that with our available resources. We've got efforts around technology sustainability, our communication efforts. We heard some highlights of OE10 tonight regarding public relations. We have many curriculum initiatives, including changing credits and requirements going on, making sure that we have a budget that supports that. A budget that is robust and supportive of professional development for our staff. Around academic success, our gains and growth post-pandemic is starting to get very exciting, and I think Sue won't be here to tell us about it, but in the future I think we'll have some great results that we'll be able to share. Dollars around educator effectiveness, how our staff is licensed and evaluated. Support for our results policies and operational expectations. Again, that's another alignment check for us related to budget. Maintenance projects that support our 5-year capital plan and our master facility study. Annual required contribution for OPEB. Assumptions for salaries, fringes, CPI adjustments, including level advancement. The approved compensation studies that you saw last month. Just to highlight, in 25-26, there will not be any ESSER funding. Current amount of those dollars are expiring here in 24-25. And then we'll be utilizing our second year of our 3-year non-recurring referendum capacity. So some of the remaining assumptions, things that we don't know yet, all of these are projected. Our enrollment, we will not know until our September count. Our state aid we'll receive on October 15th. Our certified property values we'll receive on October 1st. All of those back into an equation that help us determine our tax levy later in October. It is predicated on $325 per pupil to the revenue limit increase. Mr. Holmes had touched on a little bit some traction or hope, I guess, in moving forward. That state budget process still, though, is very much in its infancy stages. And as presented earlier and projected, it doesn't appear that any of that process was going to unfold quickly. It'll probably take longer than it would being done on a quicker timeline. So wage increases, level movement for all eligible staff. We talked a little bit about federal programming. All those numbers are estimates at this time, but we are keeping a very close eye on that. Any adjustments to health insurance? There are probably going to be some plan design modifications to avoid increasing premium rates, which we can't afford. Approved comp studies that you previously approved, and all of our other grant numbers, most federal, are estimates. Probably the least firm that we've seen in quite some time. So challenges. Much can change between now and fall. As discussed earlier, our state budget process, I would call it crucial to our future. Things are tight, and they're going to continue to be tight as we decline in enrollment. Sorry for using the word sucks, but it sucks to be in a declining enrollment situation. Our referendum was about sustainability and momentum, making adjustments. We'll have to continue to make those as we move along. So, happy to answer any questions. A bulk of what you're approving was the staffing plan, which is already approved. So after questions, we're recommending approval of our preliminary budget this evening.
Chad, I got a question about page 5. I'd like to understand the bottom of page 5 when you say open enrollment in. Those are students that are not in our district that are coming in, right?
Correct. They reside in a district other than ours.
All right. So, I mean, just so that I'm making sure that this is going the right way, that's a good thing for us. It increases our numbers. How come over on the right side of the form, we subtract the OE in and we add the OE out? Would it be opposite of that?
It's not. So we can't count non-residents. So it actually works in reverse of that. We have more kids open enrolled out. They are our residents for pupil count.
So they still count for our pupil?
Still count for our pupil.
So how does it hurt us?
Outs we have to
How does it hurt us then?
Well, there's an aid transfer that goes with those kids. Send the money to the other school. The money, for pupil count purposes, it benefits us in terms of a number, but financially, the money follows the kids.
Coming in.
I have a question in regards to the elementary class, because without the boundary change, we're now left with about 10 classes that are on the bubble. Like, do we have a?
We have a contingency fund that will not cover all of them, certainly.
Okay.
We typically budget for, and it's hard to shake out too, because we'll have some turnover between now and the start of the school year, but we try to compensate for what ifs in the fall if we need a couple positions, both in the teaching and support staff level. It's just wise planning on our part.
And it's probably hard to ask this question without Chris here too, but like special ed caseloads, like, could there be
we always have the possibility of students moving into our district with more severe needs than we're capable of meeting. We've had some pretty considerable discussion in the last couple of weeks about that possibility. So something that we're trying to keep our hands around in terms of as families transition into our district, which is a wonderful thing, making sure that we have the resources to meet the needs of all students.
And I believe, I would have to verify with Chris, but I think we did have a slight reduction in special ed population. It's not even a full percentage point, but it was a slight reduction, so we didn't grow yet.
Chad, what percentage of our budget is staffing and fringe?
It's about 60%. It's a little unique for us because we don't own our own transportation fleet. If we added that in, we'd be in the mid-70s like most school districts.
Board members have any additional questions? And I would look for a motion.
So moved to accept the preliminary budget plan.
Motion by Olson to approve the 2025-26 preliminary budget plan as presented. Is there a second? Second by McElwain. Any further discussion? Clerk, roll call, please.
Steve Olson?
Aye.
Sharon McElwain?
Aye.
Dennis Spear? Sherry Jasper? Aye. Dave Martineau? Peggy McKillop?
Aye.
Dave Jack?
Aye. Motion carries. The 2025-2026 preliminary budget plan is approved as presented. Thank you, Mr. Trowbridge.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, under 9.1, consideration of new compensation process proposal. And that would be Ms. Deneur.
Yes, thank you. And I also want to give a thank you to members of our staff who have sat in on the almost 8 hours of meetings regarding this proposal tonight, and for being here. High school staff, after parent-teacher conferences, I hope that they fed you at some point so that you're not too hungry. But thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate that. So the purpose tonight in this time is to share with you the proposed compensation process that I was charged with overseeing for this school year, and to come forward with a proposal tonight. So the goal of the committee, or goals of the committee of over 25 employees of all employee groups, wanted to create a process that was as consistent as possible from employee group to employee group, allowed for annual increases for all employees performing at an acceptable or effective level, offered more competitive compensation, and doing that all while working within our financial means, knowing that we are experiencing declining enrollment. So this committee, like I said, came together for close to 8 hours on 5 different occasions. And in addition to that, they spoke with colleagues and got feedback and brought back to those meetings. So a lot of time invested by the staff members involved in this process from November to tonight. This group is not looking to change the timeline of how we carry out a compensation study, but rather how we determine our compensation. So this diverse group engaged in some really real conversation and did so in a really respectful manner. I was really impressed with how they advocated for one another in different employee groups, because they know it's about all of us and not just about a single employee group or a single person, even though the work that they were doing was really personal. So what's going to be shared next is what we feel will help us to retain and attract solid staff members for our kids in regards to compensation. And we believe this approach has taken into consideration our current financial state, our declining enrollment, and the unknown impacts of the funding shifts at both the state and local levels to the best of our abilities. So these are just kind of some of the highlights, comparisons between our current process and proposed process that you're going to see some shifts in the proposal. We are proposing that this process be used for the 25-26 school year through the 27-28 school year, and then that the process would be reviewed at the end of that third year once every group that we're proposing goes through the study. The reason for that is we're hoping to be proactive and make shifts and adjustments and changes to things that may have not worked in the way we had anticipated, or if the world around us has changed, it allows us, again, to be proactive and not reactive when we're talking about compensation. A few notes regarding what you see before you. This group would like to allow for more than a 2% increase annually if financially possible, and that's why it's noted as a minimum of a 2% increase each year for all staff. We'd also like to use the 61st percentile instead of the 51st to determine our midpoint as well as our minimums and maximums. Again, this year for the compensation study for the group that was studied, we followed the process that was approved and used the 51st percentile, but last year when the support staff, hourly staff was studied, the 61st percentile was allowed to be used by the board. So I'm going to share some examples of certified staff compensation next, as this is the group that is up for study next year. We realize that it's just one group, but just to maybe help put some numbers around things and show you where we're currently at. So on the screen now you see salary comparisons for us and all of the Big River schools by us using the 51st percentile to make our scales. The group is recommending that we move to all of the Big Rivers Conference as our comparables. We feel that those districts, some are of similar size, as well as they tend to be our biggest competitors because people who leave our district, most are staying within the area and not going across the state. So that's why we landed on the BRC. If we look at salary comparisons, currently we are the second lowest for starting salary and the second lowest for a highest. And again, this is just teaching, and I just pulled the one group because that's who's to be studied for next year. We do recognize, as was brought up by Ms. Jasper, that there are fringe benefits as well that our employees get, and so wanted to show that we're about middle of the road right now in the BRC. But we do know that that comes into our total compensation package. So this just gives you an overview of our current salary schedules, and currently the 2% increase at base wage for these three different positions, and what that 2% increase would look like. Now, please know we do anticipate for that teacher position that the base would increase if we're using the 61st percentile and comparing to districts who may have done a compensation study more recently than us. So these aren't suggested numbers of what it would be moving forward, but just to give you some numbers and what that change of a 2% increase could look like. So after the sharing of that data, again, to just give an illustration of what one group could look like in that proposed change, we not only want to recommend using the 61st percentile to determine our midpoint, but again, as I mentioned earlier, we want to study groups every 3 years. Right now, we're on a 4-year rotation. We feel if we do a 3-year rotation, it just puts us one year ahead of the curve. And so we would like to do that to be able to be more responsive to the changing needs of our people based on what's happening in the world around them. With the shift to studying each group, though, every 3 years, we needed to do some regrouping of employee groups in order to be able to sustain the 4 to 3 year shift. So the proposal will continue with the certified staff, Schedule C, and substitutes next year as scheduled. The proposal would then move the hourly staff ahead a year or 2, if you're thinking about the old process, to be studied in 26, 27. And then that would push the administrative group study off an additional year, and the administrative group would then be combined with the group that we studied this year. Those are 2 of our smaller groups, and so financially we're anticipating that that would be the best match. Because the administration group would be studied a year later, we were proposing that those on the scale would continue to move on the already approved scale. And if someone was capped on this scale for the 27-28 school year, which is currently when their new study should have gone into place, that if they're capped, that they would receive that 2% increase just for the 27-28 year, because that's the year we'll be in study, and then 28-29, the new scale will go into place. Because again, people may have been frozen or capped for an additional year by shifting hourly administration around. I think that's all on that one. Okay, so just one final note to point out, and it's very small, but you can see it in board docs, is that in reflection of how the hourly staff compensation study went, last year we wanted to learn from our past and work to consider or determine a new rate for hires to be based on the same scale, but to be able to make sure that we are helping our people who have been here for 5+ years not feel like they're needing to move back and be compensated at the same rate as someone who has never worked a day in education or never worked a day in our district, which is what happened unfortunately with some of our staff in the compensation study. Everybody is making more money, but it just, the feel of it, the optics again, weren't well received. And so we want to be cognizant of that, and we have some ideas for how we can make that happen moving forward. And it would look like potentially not having a published scale, but be able to just build on that increase of 2% each year from the previous year, which would not then have a new hire. They would start at base, and so they would not be at the same level as someone who has been here with what we're proposing.
So, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
That takes into consideration not having salary compression, right? Is that what you're saying, that's what it's to address, right?
Correct.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so what we would do is, what we're currently doing in our process is, so let's say, before we budget for it, I'm on step 2. Next year I'd be on step 3. So I get moved on my current scale. And then on my new scale, I get placed on the next, or the closest step that will give me an increase, right? So we wanted to do something similar to that. And so what we would do is we would give them a 2% increase, and then we would figure out what the percent increase is from the base of the old to the base of the new, and then put that in conjunction with that 2% increase. So let's say the base changed by 1.5%. You get the 2% move, which is the new process, plus another 1.5%, and that eliminates that new person being at the same scale step as somebody who has been here, even when the scale moves.
Just for trying to get my head around the math, starting salary is at $43,000, so at a 51% comparable, what would that raise that starting salary to?
I honestly have no idea because I have not collected that data.
Could you just, I'm just curious how the math is gonna work out. Could you?
From the 51st to the 61st?
No, just the 51st, so I have an idea what the starting salary would be. So I can, I'm very visual, so I'm just trying to put us in that salary comparisons, like once we do get a salary bump, that where that starting wage is. It's just for
Yeah, so in order for me to determine that using the process, I would have to get all that information from all of the comparable districts, plug it into our formula, and then provide that, which is typically what happens during the compensation study. So, I mean, I can, typically that goes from November to April, so I can.
Extra work, I'll see if I can figure it out.
And the new 1202 is going to be out here in the next few months from DPI, which would give you, that's where the information I shared on teacher salaries earlier comes from. It's a year behind, but it would give a more updated comparison as to what other districts might be for this year if they did a recent study.
But at least for next year, the starting salary will be up 2%.
No.
No?
No, the starting salary, because
Plus.
we haven't studied teachers yet.
Okay.
Next year, teachers would be
Oh,
studied.
the following year, I'm sorry.
And then it would go into place, yep. And so the people who are studied this year, the hourly staff, everyone's gonna stay with what's been currently board approved until it's time for them to be reviewed, and then they fall into the new process.
Thank you. Sorry.
No. So a 3-year rotation would look like this. Again, I think the biggest difference is the review of the compensation process, and making sure that there's not changes or tweaks that we need to make a recommendation for the board to approve. No changes to the overall timeline, just on how we figure that data out. Again, these are the bigger shifts that would fall in this new proposal. And so again, after much discussion, much collaboration with some of the individuals in the room and 20-some others, we believe that at this time, this proposal will work to meet OE 5.9, which is to develop compensation and benefit plans to attract and retain the highest quality employees, compensating employees within available resources consistent with the applicable marketplace, including but not limited to organizations of comparable size and type. And we believe that this process sets us up to provide salaries comparable or higher than equivalent positions compared to the similar school districts. If I may, I would like to ask if there's anything else additional that needs to be added or that I forgot to include for those of you who have been in Corker Chestnut for multiple hours this year.
No,
Good,
you did
okay.
a great job. I think you've done a great job.
I guess I would just like to add that Sarah has done a great job of hearing all of our voices and facilitating. As she mentioned, we did do a lot of cross-checking, right, of positions and everything else, and that was to her leadership. So I'd just like to commend you on that. You opened the door for open conversation to be had, and it was appreciated, so thank you.
This was a heavy lift, really, because we've done it that other way for
Lots of years.
a very long time. And it didn't really, in my opinion, keep us up to date with the market. It caused salary compression issues. And people go for 4 years without getting another, but I mean, I thank all of you who participated in it, and I think doing it 3 years, but also giving everybody an annual increase, including the administrators, I'm presuming they're on the same.
Yeah, it would include all employee groups. The superintendent is not on a scale, so
Right.
the superintendent would be separate, but everyone else would be with it.
Yeah, I think this is, you guys all did a great job.
I guess the question for Mr. Trowbridge would be, does this fit into our budget? Is this something that's sound that we can do?
I worked very closely with Ms. Dedeur on this process, and I echo her sentiments that the respect of the people that worked on all of this took that into consideration. And yes, based on current parameters,
I would like to build off what Mr. Berger started, because that was one of the things I wanted to make sure that we found how much I appreciate in a first-year HR director to take on this task and then to complete it so thoroughly and to the, what would be the word I would use, that our staff recognize the fact that, she has done exceptional work in bringing forward something that got started a couple of years ago when we started seeing issues coming out during COVID and after COVID about the necessity to speed up the evaluation processes of salary and wages in the district. She has done a fantastic job in that regard.
You've done a fantastic job, period.
Yes. All right, well, it's time to do our
Call
job.
it as I see it.
We don't have any additional questions. The recommended action is to approve the new compensation process proposal as presented. Would any board member like to make such a motion?
So moved.
Motion by McKillop, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by McElwain. Any further discussion? This, I think we could just do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The compensation process proposal is approved as presented. And that is also our way of thanking you for your hard work. All right, 9.11 is acceptance of donations. Mr. Trowbridge.
well, this is not something we get to do every day. So this is amazing, phenomenal. So a couple months ago, we were reached out to try to figure out who a representative of the trust should talk to about us being a potential beneficiary. We think we got everybody in the right place, and was able to have a very good conversation with the representative of the trust. person by the name of Gerald D. Wolt, Gerald went by the name of Jay. Shahag graduate, 1961. Had a robust career, I would say. Spent a lot of years as a nurse in the Army. Upon completion of his service, he studied and became a nurse anesthetist, and then did some consulting for the military as he continued in that career. He passed away a little over a year ago, and he was very generous in his thoughts. He left to the tune of $1 million to both Chippewa Falls Senior High School and Stilson Elementary. So I met with our building leaders a couple weeks ago just to share this news with them. I didn't want them to hear that for the first time tonight, or perhaps if the media would have latched onto this when board docs became live. So we mapped out a process for communication so that we could inform staff about this exciting opportunity coming before us, and staff in both locations were informed last week. This is a substantial amount of money. We wanted to make sure that we had the proper channels to receive and account for the funding, to be able to place it in a fund that doesn't jeopardize our Fund 10 revenues and expenditures, something we can use for years to come. So we'll plan and work with the teams, and our responsibility in all of this is to make exceptional use of these funds, not only now but into the future to meet our current needs. I did consult with our auditors just to make sure that the way we're doing this, our plan to do this, would be proper. I was also waiting for an official letter to make sure that I had something more than a phone conversation to be able to share with you tonight. Funds should become available. They're expecting a distribution from the trust toward the end of June, and then there would be another distribution toward the end of the year. It isn't required by policy that you would formally approve this, but I just felt with the magnitude of something like this, we want to be able to celebrate and recognize and properly thank whoever we can find to let them know how much this is appreciated.
Do these funds have like parameters on it? You can't use it for operational?
There's no parameters.
No, it says,
As we see fit.
Is that considered a parameter that $1 million of it go to Stilson? Something related to Stilson? And,
Yes.
and something related to the high school? So
Well,
that's
they
the only
left out the
parameter.
junior high. Maybe it's because it's torn down.
61 grad, it might, yeah. I've been in the new middle school yet.
No, they went to, I'm a 78 grad and I went to junior high.
Well, the recommendation is to formally accept the donations for the Chippewa Falls Senior High School and the Stilson Elementary School from the Gerald D. Wolf Trusts. Would anybody like to make such a motion?
I make a motion to accept the gracious donation by the Wolt Trust.
Motion by Martin, is there a second?
I'll second that.
He can do it.
Second by Olson. Any further discussion? Let's do a roll call.
Yes.
Steve Olson,
Yes.
Dennis Spear, Sherry Jasper, aye. Sharon McElwain,
Aye.
Maggie McKillop, aye. Dave Chet.
Aye. All right. Thank you for your presentation. The board has voted to accept it. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Trowbridge, and thank you, Mr. Wolt, and all your.
Mr. Holmes. Maybe there's something we could do as a board, send the family of Mr. Wolt. So
That's what Mr. Trowbridge was alluding to. Right now, we don't know, other than the lawyers that reached out to us with the donation, we don't know any family member.
Especially when the realtor got the donation.
That's pretty. Yep.
Whatever would be available, we'll make sure it's proper.
Absolutely.
All right. So, next is discussion of board activities. The only thing that is listed here is April 30th Coherent Governance Workshop. So we have some board members that little back from that today. That somehow makes our list now, even though our meeting was supposed to be 2 days ago. But go ahead, tell us how it went.
It was one of the better workshops we've been to. We kind of reviewed the objectives and a lot of people attended. I think it just brought back the significance of acting as a board and working together for the best interest of kids. There's a lot more, but that really
Yeah, yep, great representation from several districts, in Wisconsin, so, I think Chad is probably the only original coherent governance when it was brought in
I think
2000.
Chris would have been too if she were here tonight.
Was here. Yeah, yep, so, Linda and Randy have both retired, and John Steach of this, Center for Education Excellence they've taken on coherent governance. They believe that it is a good tool that schools can use, to make sure that, you know, you're spending your time, on student results versus, some of the operational. When we attend these, conferences, a lot of times we'll hear the stories, well, we spent 4 hours discussing pool fees and, you know, and what is really important to the board. So it's good to get the different perspectives of the different board members. I strongly encourage our administration to attend that as well with board members. There was, you know, administration from the other districts there as well, and it's kind of a reminder. I don't know if you remember Linda and Randy, but you couldn't, it had to be their version of coherent governance, and John is more like, how does this work for school districts? How can school districts utilize this tool so that it supports student learning and growth? So
it's like make your own.
Yeah, because every district is, you know, has its unique, you know, thing, like, you know, CTE, agriculture, you know, you don't see as much of that down in like the southern part of the state. And a lot of what came up today is trying to measure some of those soft skills, you know, and so administrators trying to build those monitoring reports and determining indicators and whatever, you know. Sometimes it's like, you know, we're doing pretty good when you hear some of the struggles and whatnot. But yeah, it's just good to get with others that are using this thing.
Should mention too, we still have a great resource in Kathy Stricker, who was
Yes,
on the board and very instrumental in the implementation and success of coherent governance. So
yes,
she's still a resident expert in my opinion.
She is.
He's doing a good job of taking over for you as the resident expert, but you're the OG, no question about it.
It's probably the goat.
All right, discussion of, thank you both. Discussion of the meeting, 11.01. Board members, any questions or comments about the meeting itself? Anybody feel like they had an opportunity to be heard? Right, it's a little bit too late to get into in-depth of a discussion on that. Future agenda items and upcoming events, 11.02, we have the Excellence in Education banquet on May 7th. We have the retirement celebration for the CFAUSD on May 8th. Board Learning Walk, Human Resources, time to be determined. May. The organizational meeting has been moved to May 13th. May 14th, student representative interviews. The selection committee is Sherry, Sharon, and Dennis. May 9th is the Coffee and Commerce Riverfront Park. May 21st, Senior Scholarship Awards at the high school, and May 22nd, CVHS graduation. May 23rd, high school graduation, and then May 27th will be our regular monthly meeting. Board members have anything else that's not on that list that will go on in the next month that we might have missed? All right, hearing none, I would move on to 12.01, a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Martineau, is there a second?
Second.
Second by McKillop. Any further discussion? I won't require a roll call. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Stand adjourned at 9:49.